We'll move to 2.37, Township Road 232 review.
Good afternoon again, Madam Chair. Chris Perman, Senior Peace Officer. Just some background that in August, Council directed administration to bring forward a report on Township 232 with some history, some background, engineering, speeds and enforcement action. And this is a summary thereof. So the road is a two-lane undivided roadway. It spans approximately 23 kilometers from Highway 817 to Highway 1. The road at one point was paved from Highway 817 to around Range Road 242, and the rest was gravel. And then in, I believe it was 2015 and 2016, it was completed and was paved the remainder of the way from Range Road 242 to Highway 1. When that was completed, the engineering report was done, and at the time it was completed, the speed limits on that road were 100 kilometers an hour from Highway 817 east to just before Nemaker Corner, Range Road 243. Then it was 80 kilometers an hour the rest of the way for the remainder of the pavement and on the gravel portion to Highway 1. When it was paved, those speed limits remained the same until I believe it was February 7th, 2017. Council did pass a bylaw, number 2016-32, raising the speed limit on the entire roadway, to 90 kilometers an hour from Highway 1 to 0.5 kilometers west of Range Road 232 and 0.5 kilometers east of Range Road 234, so just over top of Hammer Hill Road, was 90, and then that version down to 80. And then in April of 2019, the Council passed a motion increasing the speed limit on the entire roadway of Township 232 to 100 kilometers an hour. And then in 2019, Council asked for an engineering report based on just the Hammer Hill area of Township 232. And at that point, the recommendation by the engineering, which is attached, was to keep the speed limit at 100 kilometers an hour with cautionary 80 signs near the top of Hammer Hill, just to remind you, because there is a slightly hidden intersection in that area. And then in August of 2019, as part of bylaw 2019-20, which is traffic control bylaw, the speed limit was decreased on Township 232 from 100 kilometers an hour to 80 on the section between Range Road 244 and Range Road 241, and the remainder was left at 100 kilometers an hour. As part of the research we were doing, we had operations put out traffic counters at several different locations and several different times, or for 1 week periods over the span of a couple of months. And in the numbers here show, like on Township 232 near Range Road 232, which is just west of Highway 1, there was 1,165 vehicles, and the 85th percentile speed was 111 kilometers an hour, and the average speed 93 kilometers per hour. And the 85th percentile speed is one of many engineering factors they use when determining speed limits, and what it usually means is that 85% of the vehicles traveling that area will be traveling that speed limit, and 15% will be traveling there or below. And then moving forward, Township 232 near Range Road 240 in the 100 kilometer an hour zone, 85th percentile speed was 112, average 96. Township 232 near Range Road 233 in the 80 zone, the 85th percentile speed 105, the average speed of 92. Then west of Range Road 243 in the 80 zone, 85th percentile speed was 102, average of 87. And then on Township 232 near Range Road 250, the 85th percentile was 109, and the average speed was 97. Now, I noted in here too that the highest recorded speed of those areas in that whole time was 154 kilometers per hour. That is an extreme, and if I was to bet money, I'd say it was a police car. You know, honestly, looking at the laws of averages, people aren't traveling that fast down that road. As part of that as well, Protective Services, we went and conducted targeted speed operations in the 80 zone between August and October, and 23 violation tickets were issued for exceeding the speed limit of 80 kilometers an hour, and the average speed in that zone was 107 kilometers per hour. And so moving forward, the 2015 report and the 2019 report comment about speed limits need to be consistent with prevailing topography, engineering projects, and so on and so forth. And they also talk about running speed. And I didn't really define running speed, but running speed is basically defined as the speed that most people feel comfortable traveling down a road at. And if speed limits are put too far away from what's considered the running speed, it puts a lot more people in violation. And if it's placed too far away, then a lot more people are abiding by it. What this also does is it causes confusion and can place an unnecessary burden on law enforcement. That's a quote from an AMEX report of 2015. And then talking further, it talks about speed limits being a traffic operation rather than a geometric design, but geometric design must be considered in determining posted speeds. And the Alberta Transportation Highway Geometric Design of 2018 say that most drivers in Alberta will drive somewhere between the posted speed and 10 kilometers higher when traffic conditions are favorable. As we know, the biggest lie anybody ever tells is I never speed. Most people are doing anywhere within 10 to 15 kilometers of the higher than the posted speed limits. I'm going to say most because obviously that is not 100% true, but the 85th percentile would say that a lot of people are traveling within 10 to 15 kilometers over that posted speed limit. Another thing that was brought up was the increase in commercial traffic on Township 232. I did have the occasion to actually stop a few of the commercial transport trucks that were traveling down that road. Part of the reason that they had switched to that is when Alberta Transportation reduced the speed limit on Highway 901 through the Siksika Reserve to 80 kilometers an hour. It was an unintended consequence is now that because this is 100 mixed with an 80 zone, it's a nice road, it's clear. More and more transport trucks were taking that as a shortcut between Calgary and Brooks. And I will say, all of the transport trucks that we saw on that road abided by the speed. We had no issuances of any traffic violation tickets to any commercial transport, like 5-axle, so transport, commercial van trailer, Super Bs, farm equipment, so on and so forth. We never did see any of those in excess of more than 15% of the posted speed limit of 80 kilometers an hour. And so, yeah, the options to consider would be to, obviously, lots of options is to leave the current speed limit as it is with 100 with the 80 zone. Council could adjust the speed limit of Township 232 to 100, adjust the entire township to 90, or adjust the entire township to 80. I mean, but I would say that consistency is important. My also concern is that keeping and reducing and so on and so forth does, as I said before, place an unreasonable burden on enforcement, because it has the appearances that we are trying to target and generate revenue from these areas rather than look at it as a safety concern. And we are not revenue generators in protective services, and Wheatland County has never been that way. We enforce based on safety concerns. So just another thing to consider. And that is my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the fulsome report. It's really helpful. As a councillor of the area, and because we have two new councillors, very brief context. What preceded this request to administration were several letters of concern that initially I'd received from ratepayers. As sort of those concerns were expressed on social media, I also did hear some counter perspectives where people were happy with the speed limit on the road or would like to see that 80 kilometer an hour piece removed. That was done in response to some safety concerns from multiple residents in the area, including 2 school bus drivers who had a couple of those kind of vertical curves that were impacting visibility and entering the road safely. My request to council is if council might consider some of the correspondence that I received, as well as some correspondence, one piece for sure that went directly to administration. We did reference that we would request an opportunity for the ratepayers to address council with their concerns. So rather than me bringing their concerns to you, sort of like going back to what Councillor Kester was referencing, obviously this isn't a public hearing situation, but rather than me trying to relay the different perspectives, it might be a good opportunity, particularly given that we've had some changeover on the council, to our procedure bylaw under 8.8 does have a provision for a public input session that council could schedule, where we could allow the ratepayers who have provided correspondence or who have an interest in the speed of the road, whether it be a concern or for supporting maintaining speed limits, to be heard. One complaint that I've had is that when we dropped that one speed limit to 80, I do have a ratepayer that was concerned that their concerns were not heard on a different section of the road the day that we made that decision. And I completely agree with everything that Officer Perman is saying, like, this is not to generate revenue at all, and I do not want that perception. This is essentially balancing the same liability and responsibility that we were just referencing, with balancing that with operational efficiency and utilizing the road to to what it was built to, and having efficient transportation networks. But that cannot be, that can't compromise safety. And I think it is outlined here. There are 5 sections of the road. And I realize this is so complex. There's so many considerations in setting a speed limit. Actually, maybe it's no.
So can I clarify, Amber, your ratepayers were concerned, they wanted more of the road to be 80? Or I don't understand what
There wasn't, one was a request to decrease the speed limit to 80. Actually, a couple of people have requested that. From my own personal perspective, there is no data that would back reducing it to 80. I couldn't support that, even though I've had that request from a couple of ratepayers. The engineering reports would not support anything below 90. I believe there's 5 sections in the 2015 engineering report. And so I'll just really briefly explain. There's 5 sections where there's vertical curves, hills, we'll just call them hills. It would have cost a lot more money to bring those hills down to increase line of sight. And so out of fiscal efficiency, I think they were low. I think they were brought down somewhat, but not, they were brought down a lot, absolutely. But by the one engineering standard, only to a 90 kilometer an hour speed limit. Officer Perman did an excellent job of outlining kind of the iterations of speed limits that we've had. We can't necessarily consider, in my opinion, like the volume of the traffic, although there was actually a number of people have raised the concern about like what that does to our maintenance costs. And so I might look to administration in terms of that. I know it was raised at our previous discussion in council as well. Like, just does that impact the road? How well is it built? Can it maintain? I don't know if our traffic counts can delineate by axle, like by how many transport trucks or commercial vehicles there are.
Through the chair, there are some on the sheets of the class counts and stuff. It does break it down to small, medium, and large, but unfortunately it doesn't define what small, medium, and large are.
But that kind of gives a sense. The large would be...
Could be anywhere from a pickup truck to a transport truck.
Oh, okay.
My concern, and at the time we built the road, it was for an artery road for the area. There was grain terminals being built, and we got people driving basically through the county to deliver grain. Now we got terminals at both corners of the county. We've got grain moving from far away as Hannah comes through our county to some of this. So that's what it was built for. And we had some company come in and ratepayers and saying there's more trucks on the road now that weren't there since the speed limit was lowered on 901. They're coming around because they can go faster. My question at the time was, is this increased traffic impacting our route? Now, I know had instruction from, remember a previous officer we had here, name escapes me. He was your partner for a while, Chris. Yeah, Guler. He give us a presentation on what speed and weight and axles do to a road. And that was what I was kind of hoping for, is these trucks doing 100 and the increased volume, is it wearing down the life capacity of our road? That's not our traffic that's doing it, right? It's coming from traffic bypassing the 901. And that's my concern there, yeah.
So through the chair, if I may, we've started recently, most likely, and a lot of places have started building the roadways up to provincial highway grade for those reasons whatsoever. And if I'm I'm not mistaken, obviously I'm not an engineer, so I don't understand the engineering reports myself. My understanding is that the base and the paving of that road were built to primary highway standards, so they should be able to handle the amount of traffic on it.
So just to further clarify my take on Officer Goular's report, it's not only the weight of the vehicle, it's the axles and the speed and the recovery period of the road. So it depends on what grade it's built to, how it can recover all these axles floating over it. So if you don't think there's much of an impact, well then it kind of throws that away for me.
Yes, through the chair. It really, because I would agree with you 100% on some of our chip sealed roads and some that weren't built to highway grade. Absolutely, there could be deflection problems when it comes to loaded vehicles, which is why we do monitor weights on those roads as well, and we ban them to 75%, 90%, some of them year round based on that, because we want to protect the substructure of that roadway. With them being built up to the provincial highway grade, quite honestly, it'd be the same as driving down Highway 21. Is the ability to handle the deflection and the loads and stuff like that.
Okay. So my next query, you said the mean average speed on that road. To me, that's a safety issue I never thought of before. What is the average speed limit on there? Maybe that should be closer to what our speed limit is to provide a safety margin for the traveling public. We don't need to have people going faster than the mean, maybe lower, I don't know. I was interested in that comment.
I think through the chair, what happens is if there's too much confusion and delineation from consistency, nobody follows anything.
Right.
And that's where we run into real problems, especially with the perception of the speed trap cash cows. We see it in a lot of other municipalities and so on and so forth, where part of the reason why photo radar has been banned in a lot of areas, because a lot of municipalities were putting it in places that weren't required for safety concerns, but they knew people were going to fly past them. When the speed limits are inconsistent and what most people will think unreasonable based on the conditions and the engineering and stuff, they just don't follow them. And so we want to try and make it, like I was saying about the running speed, is to make them as close as possible. Of course, I'm definitely not an expert in any of this. I'm just a guy who's done enforcement for 25 years, and I can see from many different roads I've traveled and how the traffic reacts. Most people will be doing a steady speed. You're going to have maybe 5-10% going a lot faster than what the speed limit is, and that's the ones we catch.
Well, I use that road, and I often wonder why it is that speed limit is dropping, and especially when it was up and down, up and down, up and down, drove me crazy. I mean, you want to sort of set your cruise control and just go. And that section there, to me, I meant to drive it today to see, but it just doesn't seem like a dangerous part of the road. I'd like to hear from the ratepayers to see what they.
Yeah, it's not the largest vertical curve there for sure,
No.
but there are line of sight. So what was happening is when you had traffic going at 100 kilometers an hour, and because of where the curves are and the driveways are, when it's a hidden driveway, like essentially the issue is you've got traffic running this way and this way. So if you're pulling out on the blind corner, like on a hidden driveway with a vertical curve, you may be coming into traffic here. Something could, like a vehicle. Now, sometimes the taller vehicles can actually see better because they have more line of sight than like a typical vehicle, truck or car. But you've got a vehicle, say you come out of your driveway here, you turn here, and you have a vehicle crest that vertical curve at 110 kilometers an hour because they're doing their plus 10, that I know lots of people do. There would be liability or higher probability of a collision just because of the rate of speed and reaction times and that traffic coming on. I would really, really implore council to support me in my request for a public input session. We did discuss this during the council meeting. Look at the date. Whatever day this direction was given, on August 24th. Council on that day had discussed as well. I know we had discussed public engagement in terms of that. A simple way to do that would be to schedule that for a future council meeting. Make it open. Anyone with concerns or anyone from any perspective, whether it's to raise the speed limit to who knows what or lower it, then we can hear from that, hear those positions, balance that with what you're saying in terms of setting speed limits is consistent with everything I've learned as I did kind of a deep dive into this. We obviously have competing principles and factors to consider in this. Different councillors may prioritize different considerations or different factors, and that's fine, that's democracy. But I really think it would be unfair for us not to hear from those ratepayers with concerns. I think that would be the best thing. And then just if administration can confirm, I appreciate what you're saying about the quality of the road. If we can just confirm that that's the case, because I know that's been a strong question that's been raised to me. Yeah.
I can support your request, Amber, but on the condition that Officer Perman has a presentation at it.
Yeah, that's
you
a
said
good
the
idea.
road is built up to standards. That was a question on our last thing. You said, I never heard this mean speed before. I think that's relevant for the public to hear. I think your presentation today was excellent. I think it merits a redo going with the public here so they can hear what we're hearing and then add it to their. Sorry, I wanted to call you a counselor. I
understand what you're saying.
Constable was the word I tried to say.
I never have a problem with public coming here and talking to us. But also as an area councillor that deals with a lot of things. This previous one that we just dealt with, I probably could have had 100 people come in here and do the same thing. I took it upon myself to bring it to council to try to rectify those concerns without her filling up the gallery with people that are going to take time out of their day. And because I'm going to say day, because a lot of these people do work and it's hard for them to get here. So I would just as soon an email works, letters work just as well to me. It means the same thing. So a lot of people that are in this county are working during the day, and for them to come here to do that, it takes a lot of their income away. So I'm always, and you know, Strathmore, they meet in evenings and stuff. I've had that request from lots of people, but our job is to represent the people. So, you know, I take your word. Yeah.
Incredibly good point. And I think I'm with you. Like, I would put the same weight on an email, like written correspondence, an email or a letter, as I would too if they do have the capacity to come. The reason I do ask just for the public input session is because, particularly because at our last council meeting, when we addressed this, we did discuss that. And it was in one letter, just from a ratepayer that had sent in like an inquiry to administration as well. But excellent point that if there's correspondence, I would ask that council weigh that as well, because you're right, there are limitations to people's ability to either be here in person or even engage through teleconference if you are working in that type of thing. So I would put a motion on the floor, and I'm going to ask for December 21st just because there's a chance that I may not be able to attend our first council meeting in December, and I would like to be here. If we could schedule a public input session regarding speed limit for Township Road 232 for our December 21st council meeting. And if
just one consideration that council may want to consider prior to putting this forward is just the method of public input session. So this room has a fire capacity of 75 people. So right now we'd have to limit that to 25. So I was just doing the math here. So we have 7 councillors, probably 5 to 6 administration would sit in. So then we're down to 12 maximum seating. So it might be good, even if it's not the December 21st meeting, it might be good to maybe even try to facilitate it at the second meeting in January. Just something to consider, because it's very important to get as many people as you want to participate or can participate in this public input session, and they're allowed to see the presentation, have their input, and hear other input as well. It's just something to consider prior to passing that motion.
Yeah, excellent point. Is the January 4th meeting good for you or no?
So the first meeting in January is the 11th.
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
I haven't
just,
updated my calendar. Sorry.
We just still have to send those things.
No, it's my fault on my calendar. I'll pull it up here. Oh, and it's not online, right? I don't think I have my paper with me. So we have council January. What are the dates? Remind me. I know it's the first one is Wednesday, December. The first one in December is on a Wednesday, the 8th.
Yes.
And then we have the 21st.
So the 8th and 21st, I think it would be important to give as much notification for residents to come and make time to actually attend. It is kind of one of the key things in public participation is to give it ample time for people to attend and give them that opportunity to schedule it in. And then also, I believe, give them the option to participate in a hybrid fashion as well to kind of alleviate some of those other barriers that Councillor or Deputy Reeve Clausen mentioned with not necessarily taking the day off work to come in at that point. Maybe a time like suggesting, say, 10 a.m. on January 11th might be the best. Just a suggestion.
So in regards to notification, how is that going to work? Because I have I've got a bunch of ratepayers that are really concerned about this, and they don't live anywhere near that road, but they use it all the time.
Perhaps on the county website.
Yes, that would be one part of it, county website. Then we'd probably do some targeting of mail-outs as well. And then we advertise on our social media pages as well.
And then maybe we just do like if people would like to speak, they could like register for a request for comment so that we can manage numbers. And if it's in excess of the fire code, then perhaps we could just bring in like subsets if that were necessary.
Mm-hmm. Yep, we can do that.
I think that makes the hybrid difficult.
Yeah,
I don't think we
believe we don't have the recording capability in the ECC, unfortunately. I think this is the only room that we can record all councillors with microphones and stuff like that.
Okay, I'm going to try my motion again. To schedule a public input session for January 11th at 10 a.m. regarding speed limit on Township Road 232. Any questions or discussion? Thank you.
Can we get the entire motion read back just so I'm clear? Because I only heard January that time.
Yes, I would move that we would schedule a public input session regarding speed limit on Township Road 232 for January 11th at 10 a.m. The public input session would follow our current procedure bylaw if we're looking for clarity for that. Any questions or discussion? All in favor?